Hey, Walter Sorrells back with another Knife Makers Friday 5. Today, perfect bevels by the book. Bevels by the book. What do I mean by that? Well, I got a note a couple days ago from Brandon Stevens in Australia. Here's his note. I live in Australia and looking to get into knife making as a hobby. And I'm wanting to know how one measures to determine the center line for grinding the knife bevels before heat treat. If you could explain this in metric, that would be awesome. Well, first, it works the same way in freedom units as it does in metric. So put your mind at rest on that, Brandon. I'm kidding, of course. You know, one of the semi-amusing, maybe not really all that amusing things about working on an imperial measurement on the internet is that you constantly get people from other countries helpfully telling you all the time that the metric system makes more sense than imperial. Yeah, but just for reference, people of the internet, I personally did not choose the measuring system that my country uses. Anyway, that's not addressed to Brandon, just to trolls who think they're being all super original and cool when they make that tired ass observation. All right, so what I'm going to do today is talk generally about using various measurements to get good bevels. First, let's talk about what makes a good bevel, and then I'll circle back to Brandon's question in more specifics. So basically, job one, you want a knife to cut well and to be strong. Now, sadly, strength is almost always the enemy of cutting ability. Sorry, just is. So you're always having to balance those two qualities, hopefully optimizing for the materials and intended uses of your knife. Camp knives and choppers are way over here, paring knives and scalpels are over here, and everything else is in between. Now, putting aside the issue of blade thickness specifically, the two biggest things that you as a knife maker can control with respect to sharpness are the steepness of the bevels and the thickness of the knife at the edge before sharpening adds in the micro bevel, which is, the little sharpening that you do to make that final edge. Now, unless you're talking about specialized knives like sushi knives that are asymmetrical, you always want your bevels to be symmetrical. That is exactly the same on each side of the knife. So let's start there. The way to get symmetrical bevels is to keep the blade at exactly the same angle when you grind. You don't change your bevel angle at the tip, you just gently cant the knife out from the grinding surface as you grind. But the bevel angle stays exactly the same. So if you do it that way, you'll get even grind lines and a consistent edge thickness. So let's finally get back to Brandon's question. How thick do you want that edge to be? Sadly, there's not a simple answer. Now, personally, for the kind of knives that I make, and that's just what I make, hunting knives, small utility knives, kitchen knives, things like that, as a general rule, I'm kind of in the 20,000ths of an inch thickness, or about half of a millimeter. Or if you want to go microns, 400 to 500 microns. Now, I know guys who go a lot thicker than that, more like a millimeter or 40 to 50 thou. To me, honestly, this is silly thick for, EDC type knives, the kind of things that I make. I would rather have my edge, ding on something that I'm cutting that's too hard rather than have a knife that just won't cut worth a damn. So, by the way, for camp knives, choppers, those types of knives, those thicker measurements, make a lot of sense. But, for a tiny wood carving knife or a paring knife, you actually might want to go thinner, more like 10 thou or 250 microns. At the end of the day, though, you just have to evaluate what qualities you want in the knife that you're making and aim for that. It's your knife. Quick note here, if you're enjoying my videos and want to support what I do, I hope you'll consider helping the channel out on Patreon. When you do, you'll get access to my library of plans. I've been doing these videos for about 12 years now, So there are a lot of plans there for all kinds of builds that I've done over the years, and none of that has cost you a single penny. So if you feel like giving back, well, bless your souls. Link in the cards and description. Okay, so now you got a thickness that you're aiming for. That's great, but how to actually make it happen? As a general rule, I use a scribe like this one here. This one is from stainless steel tool wrap, but I've got a video that shows how to make them, and you can buy them from all kinds of different knife making supply places. Now, in theory, you can measure this really precisely. Divide the thickness of the blade in half, then add half the intended thickness, and that's the depth that you want to measure on your scribe. So then you can use calipers to set the scribe to that exact amount. Look, here's the problem. If you can do that with any degree of accuracy, congratulations to you. Personally, I just eyeball it. It's not because I don't like precision, but because every time you tighten the little set screw on the side of the scribe, it kind of changes the position of the scribe and throws off your measurement. Anyway, once you've got that, then you just scribe 2 lines down the cutting edge of the blade. Personally, I don't scribe an actual center line. I scribe 1 for each side to grind 2. But some people like doing a center line. Other ways of doing this, the super rough way to do it is to set a drill bit or some other kind of, little pointy tool down on a block or a piece of melamine or could be glass, whatever, and scritchy scratch your way to a pair of lines. Probably the most accurate way to do it is to use a height gauge and a machinist block. So you set the distance, scratch, flip it over, scratch again. Now the only problem with that is that it's not unusual for blades to have lots of little burrs on them, and that can either throw off your measurements or scratch up your machinist block. But a little care, a little prep, that'll get you around that. Brand new height gauges can be expensive, but you can pick them up on eBay, used ones, really nice ones, for not all that much money. When using any of these techniques, you can scratch the scribe directly into the steel or use layout fluid. Now all you have to do is grind right down to that line. Once you start getting down to those scribed lines, you can use calipers to get the exact thickness that you want. Like I said, the scribe lines don't have to be dead perfect. You just need to have them symmetrical. So as long as you get within, say, 100 microns or a few thou on each side, your symmetry should be pretty good, and it's just a matter of grinding equally on both sides until you reach the target thickness. Just because your edge is the thickness you want and is situated symmetrically does not mean, however, that your bevels will be symmetrical. If you're using a jig, generally things should work out pretty well. But if you grind freehand, and that's the way that I typically do it, it's pretty easy to throw that angle off and have one side, with a little midget bevel and the other with a long bevel. How to avoid that? Good old layout fluid again, and calipers. So you just set your intended bevel distance, whatever you want that to be, and you just scribe away on both sides. Then all you have to do is grind up to that line. One last measuring tool that can be handy when it comes to grinding your bevels is an electronic protractor or angle measure, whatever you want to call it. It's simple to use. Just zero them on whatever surface your blade's lying on, then stick them on the blade. Now, I don't use them to measure blades for symmetry or anything like that. They're just not accurate enough. But it's useful to know, what that angle is, especially if you're using stock in a thickness that you don't normally use, or you have a forged blade and you don't know what the exact thickness is. So after you've made a lot of blades, you start having angles that you feel comfortable with, and you may want to duplicate those from one knife to another. All right, I hope that helps, Brandon. I'm sure this was way more information than you were looking for, but my feeling is that the more you have a framework for understanding why you're doing what you're doing with a particular knife, the easier it is to keep duplicating that and to step up your game knife to knife to knife. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe and make sure that you click on that bell so you get notified of all the latest videos. Want to buy a knife from me? Check out my modern blades at tacticsarmory.com. Digging the channel? You can support our video making efforts on Patreon. You know, I've been banging away on these videos for like 10 years, so I hope you'll show some love for all that hard work. Link in the cards and descriptions. Finally, if you're interested in making Japanese swords, check out my full line of Japanese sword videos where I show how to forge Japanese swords as well as how to polish them and how to make fittings, handles, and scabbards. WalterSorrellsBlades.com.